Well, hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to part two of this episode for ESO Spotlight. For those of you new to this episode, I highly recommend that you go back and listen to part one. For those of you returning, you'll remember that we last left off with how Rokthor was just getting into joining the companions. We now pick up with a question that I try to ask people on this show whenever I can. So, with that being said, let's pick up where we left off. So, all right, we got a lot. To be honest, I don't think we'd be able to cover the entirety of all the RP that you've been through. So
Oh, there's
I'm
no
gonna,
way. I mean, that's what,
no,
4 or 5 years. Yeah,
yeah. So I'm gonna leave it up to you. What events stand out to you in your character's life?
that's actually pretty easy because I've actually there's almost a timeline of things. To sum it up kind of nicely, we've gone through kind of the beginning and is getting into the Hammer of Atmora and the companion's life and all that. A little ways after that, one of the probably the just the worst things. Well, I mean, it should be bad for anybody, but to him, it was the end all be all. He took a group of new bloods to investigate something with it was very trivial, the deal, bandits in a cave and all that kind of thing. It ended up being a trap, and our lovely Raina, who was playing the devious and terrible vampire that plagued us for a while there, it was a trap set by that enemy, which actually before was a skipping ahead, back a little bit, a vampire seductress, if you will,
Uh
a
oh.
woman, yeah, that kind of charmed him a little bit
Uh oh.
before before him realizing this error of his ways and what was going on, which culminated in a very public beheading of her in the streets of Windhelm.
Nice.
And by public beheading, I literally mean, like, I'm not talking about like the axe. I'm talking like hold hold you by the throat and rip your head off. That kind of like nasty rage.
Yeah,
So
and like
yeah,
bits of entrail hanging, not
yeah,
entrail, but like her
yeah,
windpipe hanging out of the neck and shit.
exactly.
That's awesome.
So that's that was her brother. Obviously, he's a little upset. But it's not good enough for a warrior like Rokthor. It's not good enough to just defeat them because that's what they want. Not what they want, but they know that there's a it's a win-win. They either beat you and are victory or Sovngarde. So that wasn't good enough. So what happened was this intel was false and it was a trap. And he was actually there was a cave in. He was able to get the new bloods and stuff out in time, but he was actually shot back, whatever you want to say, magic, gripped back, grabbed, and taken through a portal. And for a while, he was in prison in a cage like a dog by the vampire, other Daedric forces. And they tortured him. Of course, he wouldn't relent because, the sweet embrace of death would take him where he needed to go. But they wouldn't kill him. They just continued to torture him, starve him, no water, stuff like that. Bring him to the brink of death and then just not kill him. And finally, in the midst of all that, after weeks and weeks of that, illusion magic got the better of him. And a certain dark elf maiden who he was very fond of, that we all know and love, appeared to him to rescue him and to get him out of that cage. But knowing that he was too weak to make the trip back, she offered him some bread and some water in a chalice. And he was just so excited to see anybody because he'd been in the dark and in a cage and tortured for 2 weeks that he ate it and he drank it. And he, in that moment, willingly drank the blood of the infected, or the children of Hersine, possibly we call them, or the were creatures. And of course, we all know by lore standards, when you willingly take that, we know how fast that curse sets in. It's a little different than the, lore is not specific to that, but I played around with it because you can do what you want when it's your story. But so the transformation was pretty quick and pretty, permanent, if you will, because how could he, there's nowhere for him to go. So eventually, mockingly, he was released. And, the vampire got away. Everybody else that was involved in that wasn't so lucky, because when you turn the beast of the north to a literal beast of the north.
Well, not only that, but it's got to fuck with your psyche too.
Oh yeah, there was
you,
nothing. There was no one to be. There was nothing left standing. And
well, not that, but it's like the whole reason of Rock's raison d'etre, if you will, is to make it Sovngarde, right?
Oh, and it destroyed him, and that was the
right.
That was the
He can't make it to Sovngarde because he's
they took the one thing from him that he desired the most,
right.
And so it was the absolute worst torture. And so he returned. He didn't know what to do, but he went back to the only family he knew, the only friends he had, and there were some there. No spoilers or getting into anybody's backstory, but there were some there that also suffered from the curse, that were managing, and they kind of in the toughest way possible comforted him and made sure he was telling him he was going to be all right. But he wasn't. He was not all right. He continued on with that for a good year or better. But it was never when I decided to do it, it was never going to be part of his existence, for long.
Right.
It tortured him. Every contract, didn't matter, and I wrote that in and RP'd that out. Every contract, anything he was involved in, it always came up. I mean, he was despondent, inconsolable. You know what I mean? Like it's all he talked about. And when people started coming around, there were a few, clan friends, things like that would come around that would talk to him about it. He would just say, he would leave. He would go on these extended absences, and he was looking for a cure.
Right.
Because that's all that mattered, So yeah, I mean that he was a different person. And I mean, he did his best to control it, which I think is important. And like I said, I would never, dictate anyone else's RP or their writing or anything like that. But I think it's important to not overlook that aspect of it, that even the best of us, or even if you wanted that, if you think of it as a gift and not a curse, that it's not a 100%, you can't control it all the time. It's not you're not a Power Ranger. Like, Wolf mode, go.
Yeah, it's something that I feel that a lot of, and this is why I like to shout, not I like to, but I humorously shout, fuck vampires, fuck werewolves, because I've never really seen them take the responsibility aspect of it all. The idea of
and
you can't really control it. Yeah, you hit on it. He hit the nail on the head with it.
And there's some people that do, and more, props to them, because it's tough to do that and not just see, take all good in it. Because I mean, nobody wants their character to have a flaw or a weak, but it is. I mean, it's something that's got to be a part of your everyday, And it was for him, and he hated it, and he was a different person. Everything that everyone knew about him from that, up to that point had changed. He was not jovial. He was not, slamming down mugs and singing songs to his ancestors. There was none of that, because he was broken. Because the only thing he wanted in life was taken. That's all he had. And so finally, it came to the point where everything boiled over. It was he was kind of snippy. He was fighting with Shield siblings, which he would never do. I mean, the tenets of honor there were so important to him, but he was losing his mind,
Mm-hmm.
And so he and Havard had it out, and they took it down to the crypts underneath Foulstone, and a fist fight turned into a war. And of course, when those emotions are flying, that control factor is relinquished, and he started to, fangs came out, and the claws came out. They did so on Havard as well, and they pretty much were going to fight to the death. And some timely intervention by a Skull, played by Asgard at the time, and a enchanted silver dagger in his back, ended that real quick. and I think they pumped poor Havard in his werebear form. I think they pumped him full of silver bolts to the point of him near death. So it was all around not a good look for either of us. But through that came a cure. It was actually when that Return of the West was going on still. And our good friend Lycos, he was playing I think it was Clan Elkhorn, if I'm not mistaken. I'm sorry if I got that wrong. But yeah, so that was actually going on at the same time. And so the Skull character, played by Asgard, who we know and love, he had a cure. He had a way of curing, as we know, those individuals are also very connected to those ways and have some ways of dealing with such things. And so what had happened, Lyco's character, and it was Clan Alcorn was the name. I cannot remember the character's name, forgive me. But it was one of just a basic antagonist he had from the West. And they had captured her. Now, Rokthor was dying. I mean, he had been stabbed and silver. He was in bad shape. And they brought her, and unbeknownst to him, since he was so out of it, they actually performed the ritual and cut out her heart and, said the word, did the whole thing and transferred the wolf spirit. And so he was actually cured that day. He didn't like it when he found out. He actually, at the time, came to and ran off, like a crazy, wild man. When he came back and when he finally realized what had happened, that ate at him maybe even worse, because now he thought, I was cursed and I was, they took Sovngarde from me. Now I'm not, suffering from this curse, but I still can't go because of this dishonorable deed. I've put this wolf curse onto somebody else.
Well, see, that's so for those of you that may not know, dear listeners, there are some really dodgy ways to get rid of Hircine's gift, right? One of them is, of course, as Rock outlined, you basically transfer you cut out someone's heart and you transfer the lycanthropy onto someone else, right?
Yes.
There's also in, I think, Skyrim, there's a quest line with the companions where you have to behead 10 Glenmoral witches and bring it down to the halls of Jorvaskar, and then they do some weird ritual, which is kind of vague. So that's not exactly a.
Yeah, I just think it's using Morse too, and you toss the head into the flame, and then you got to kill the wolf spirit. It's like you said, pretty vague.
Then there's also Glenmore Weirs' at least in Daggerfall, or was it Morrowind? I can't remember. One of those two. Essentially, they just have the Weirs basically have a scroll written in Daedric that says "Be gone, wolf" or something of that nature.
If only I had known that.
But supposedly, it's very hard to create that
right.
scroll. So there's that. One other thing I've also seen is that if a lycanthrope has dormant lycanthropy, which I'm not sure really how that works, you can transfer your lycanthropy over to the dormant lycanthrope and then they're active. Which I was like, what? How is lycanthropy dormant?
That one's kind of like, huh? But yeah, so he had that option, the heart and the transfer, and so that spirit, that spirit was still alive and would haunt him for a good many months after that, even after the woman perished. And so he still, he was basically back. It was business as usual. He was back to being a Debbie Downer. He's still cutting people down and fulfilling contracts, but there was the mood was sour because he thought, here we go. I got rid of the curse and I'm still not going where I need to go or where I want to go, because
even when you think you solved the problem, there's still
you just change into new problems. So it's like, what am I gonna do? And so it was believe it was the culmination of the Return of the West. There were giants. Somehow they got the aid of giants, and they were fighting on a bridge. I think they're in Malton, and I want to say Adolf was there, and I think a good many of us were there. And I mean, these giants, of course, I mean they're giants, so they were OP. And so we fought him on the bridge, and he actually ended up killing one of them. But he buried his axe. He kind of did like a sweet parkour move, I guess, and jumped up and jumped up on the bridge and dove over and got up on its back and buried his axe in its head, but not before getting smashed into the pillar and thrown over. And that was a pretty great moment for him because I had to talk with the people doing the event, the DM and everything like that, because the gist of it was that everybody had to take the bridge and fight the giants because you couldn't go through the water because they were slaughterfish. I know that's kind of a generic, don't go through the water, everybody come this way. But since it was put into play, I had to kind of okay it. And generally what I went with there was that when he fell into the water miraculously, although now we knew, going forward in his life, in what he was dealing with, that he would be, at least in his own mind, and I guess somewhat of what everybody could see, a servant of Kyne and her sword, that her protection was in a manner put over him so that he wasn't chewed to bits as he floated unconscious down the icy streams. And when he awoke, he kind of had a thought of, he knew what he had to do. And I actually didn't get to RP this with anybody. It was just kind of a solo thing, that's okay to do from time to time. But he went to Solstein, and he just kind of lived amongst them for a while, and he learned some of their ways, and he just basic, their life, and how their thoughts on things, and he told them about the curse and what he still had to do, and so, which this is kind of a more to come kind of thing, because I think with the new release of that Wolf Hunter DLC, I think I'm going to explore this a little more. So I won't give all of it away, because I'd really like to write something, like get back into the writing with that, so people can kind of discover what the hell happened to Rock all that time. When he came back a gray Nord of Kyne's justice and wisdom, and he had his personality back. But essentially he was able to, through mystical means that were not his own, because the guy knows no magic, he was able to rid himself of that. The curse was gone, but he was able to rid himself of the lingering spirit of that wolf in the realm of the wolf's master. But it cost him. People probably remember he was not looking so old when he left, but it cost him greatly. So it was a good thing and not really a bad thing, because I don't think he's lost any of his vigor or strength, but he's definitely not as attractive to the ladies as he once was.
Yeah.
Or maybe he is. Who knows?
I don't know. It's getting to the point that gray and rugged is sort of attractive. I don't know. Ladies are weird, but I've pissed off a lot of people by saying that. Anyway, yeah, I think that really does explain why he ended up being gray when he came back. I'm like, oh, he got old.
Yeah,
I wonder why. I'll ask him later, but then I never got around to ask.
So hopefully with this new, and I even kind of teased something, and we were all talking the other day, and it wasn't really a tease. It was kind of a tease, but we were talking about the new, DLC coming out in the Wolf Hunter, and I think in one of the dungeons, you go into the Hunt Master's realm, so
yeah,
I kind of
you don't walk away from that,
right, and I kind of teased that I would step in there if we could even RP that if we wanted to, that he would step foot in there, and something. The first thing he might say was, I hope I would never have to step foot in here again, Right. So it's kind of like, oh, dun dun, again. What do you mean again? So, but yeah, so you kind of got to leave a little bit of mystery sometimes for people pick up and want to ask you more and RP with you.
Mm. Okay.
But yeah, so that's his thing now, and he is 100% committed. And like you said, it's a fine line because I mean most that aren't devout followers of of Kai or the Nordic pantheon would probably call him a zealot or think he was out of his mind, and that's what I'm going for. I'm not I don't want anybody to just give me the benefit of the doubt and be like, oh, that's cool that he's like that. It's fantastic. No, absolutely not. I want people to think he's a nut. He is.
Well,
in a sense,
in a sense, but I mean, every now and again, we also do need those zealots.
Well, and that's what it is. I think he definitely, especially now in his position, within the IC position within the Hammer of Atmora, our little sect of or carve out of companions, if you will. I think it's very important for him. It fills a good niche because you can kind of use that to direct and in our his job now, besides cracking skulls and defending Skyrim and doing whatever Kyne bids him, is to serve as that impartial arbitrator of honor. So it's good for him to have this somewhere to pull it from. Not only his own personal experience, but
See, but no, this is all this makes me believe that we every now and again we do need how do I say this? I don't want to say archetypes. I want to say paragons within the RP community. So, and I gotta wipe the brown off my nose after I'm done saying this, but your character to me strikes me as more as a paragon because he definitely does play up to the warrior of honor, the sort of everything that you think about a Nord. Hardy, jovial, that sort of thing, ready for a fight, down, even kind, the kind worship. I mean, to an outsider, sure, that spells zealotry, but to an insider, someone that knows Nordic culture, I would say the norm, really.
Yeah, and and thanks for saying that. Absolutely. I'm honored that you think that, and yeah, and like I've told I've shared this with people before, and maybe even yourself. I think that's if people look to me for that, I think that's great because I'm not the type of person that's ever gonna take that anywhere beyond what it is. I'm not gonna well, it's because I'm a legend and I'm OP. I'm never gonna give myself that type of
that, sure.
Yeah, I'll joke like that, but yeah, I'm never gonna in character play that out and make anybody feel like second fiddle or anything like that, which I think a lot of the people that have gone with us and been a part of our whatever companion expedition or mission or whatever we do would probably attest to that because I mean every word out of his mouth isn't like, did you see when I cut that guy's head off, or did you see when I did this or I did that?
No,
pretty much everything he says is here comes Jorvald. He's the best, axeman we got. He's going to cut you down. You know what I mean? He's all about everybody else.
He's that dude. He's definitely that dude. But to me, he's also been the type of dude that rallies folks, that rallies the Nords anyway.
And that's his thing. He feels that, he's deeply, deeply ingrained into that victory or Sovngarde. I mean, that's it's not just a saying for him. That's his MO. And so it's going to happen. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. So, there is no, well, it looks like there's 1,000 of them and 5 of us. Well, let's kill them all. And if we don't, let's go, we'll talk about it in Sovngarde. I bet you I can kill more.
No, it's more like Rock, they've surrounded us with 1,200 men, and Rock would probably say something like, oh, those poor bastards.
Yeah, they won't get away.
He says that to like 3 people in the camp. Those poor bastards.
Yeah, I mean, that's just how he thinks because he has that, he has that to fall back on. That hey, you know what? Even if we do get overwhelmed, we know where we're going, fellas. Let's make this happen. Let's give them a good show.
Right, but see, the thing is about paragons, and I guess what I should say is to stipulate about paragons is that if you play the way that they're played well is as you said, it's not all about them. Like it's like when if Jorvald comes up and he's like, oh, he's Jorvald, right? It's not about him. You're not making it about Rock. You're making it about, here's the ideal, and here's a person that exemplifies the ideal, aka through Jorvald, and in that way, that feeds back to him being the paragon. Where I'm trying to go with this is that that's the sort of thing that does well when it comes to being a paragon anyway, because you can have a paragon go completely off the walls terrible when you think about it, because if you think about someone who's playing up to the regular noble knight cavalryman, right, and they're trying to do it to the trope, to the letter T, it ends up in, conceptually it sounds great, but in execution it's not that good. And the reason why
It's
is
messy.
because it's messy.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because they're not putting their own twist on it. Nothing, everything, it all becomes unoriginal and it gets boring.
Yep. And then
Now,
immediately everybody's, well, I've seen this movie before.
right,
Tune out.
exactly.
Tune out.
Exactly, right. And it becomes a forgettable character. Well, forgettable in the sense that, like, okay, there's nothing really individualistic about it. Now, but because they're trying to play up to a paragon, this paragon has to be in your face and ready to go, make himself prominent. But I don't think you do that. Now, if I were to look at another paragon, and we've mentioned his name a few times now, if we're gonna look at Jorvald, one of the things I like about Jorvald is that he's a downright racist. It's great. And
yes, and he doesn't compromise. He doesn't feel like he has to, and he
no,
shouldn't. And that's
yeah, like the best thing that I like about him, and I think that it's just one post, one forum post, but it exemplifies his character succinctly in that we were trying to get this Falkreath plot going between us and Raymond's Torch. Great folks. That never materialized, but even then, when we made the opening post for it, Jorvald made a post that's like, we don't need those guys. They suck.
yes.
We're Nords. We can do this shit. You guys are idiots. I'm blowing up what he says, obviously.
Go home.
Yeah, and that's a paragon though, in that he's playing up to the Nordic stereotype. He's taking it a step further with just the I don't want to say genocidal, but yeah, almost genocidal hatred of things that are not Nord, excuse me. Which then leads me to another question that I have for you. Now, Rock is he's traveled the world. You talked about him going through the desert. He spent some time over in High Rock. I'm not sure if has he gone into any of the AD territory at all or not.
The only time they briefly did some with Ulrich, we did some little work there. That was not of the diplomatic or friendly type. So I
No,
will
that was a
say
fun rating.
no. Yeah, that's about the only place he hasn't been. Which I think that probably makes sense from a lore standpoint and what we're dealing with now. Well, I don't know about now, the Somerset expansion, but whatever. Before that, that's probably one of the only places you couldn't really go and just casually walk around.
I agree with that assessment. Yeah, I don't think. I think that trying to get to the Somerset Isles would be suicidal. I think
Yeah,
still trying to get to them is suicidal unless you have some sort of
right.
pre-approved way if you're an immigrant. But
And the other place, I think, I mean, they might look at you a little funny, they might raise an
right,
eyebrow, but they're a little less likely to be like, nope, yeah,
right, exactly. But no, see, what I'm trying to get at here is that Rock himself is like he's Nord through and through. He's a bit more open-minded as well. So my question is that what's his general reaction when he sees, somebody that's not Nord in Skyrim? He's like, "What are you doing here?" Or or is he more like, "I'm watching you, son of a bitch."
I think for him, it really it's very situational. Now, overall, I don't think he has much reaction to it because he assumes that if they're there because they realize that wherever they're from sucks and Skyrim's great and they want to carve out a life, which he can respect that. As long as they are a beneficial member of the greater Skyrim, the fabric of society. So if that's their deal, he's cool with that. Just like his shield brother, which he also really considers a brother, Asgard. He's got a lot of the mages that serve him are all her and various races. but his brother trusts him, and they benefit Skyrim, and they do good things, so they're cool.
Okay. Now, this makes me wonder then, had he not been... Well, let me ask you this, because you touch upon a point of where, yeah, life must have sucked where they come from, and I think that this is a point that some of us often forget. War is a great factor when it comes to immigration, no matter how we look at it. Looking at it historically, say, after the events of World War II, the Semitic people, or the Semitic population within Europe, was down to, let's say, the single digits. My point is that they were very, very small. Not because, yes, because of the Holocaust, but also because many of them migrated soon after. It took a long time for the Semitic people to come back to Europe. And for the longest time, they were not in Europe for a while. In fact, that's why this is not really talked about, but there was a great Jewish migration here to America towards the end.
Right.
And I think that a number of folks tend to forget that it's okay with seeing, and when I say a number of folks, I mean from an IC sense. Sealy, I think we can all acknowledge this. And ideally, it's okay to see different races within provinces that they would not be in. Like if you take a stroll through Windhelm, and like I have a few times, you see the really different races. It's almost cosmopolitan when I think about it. I've seen like Naltmer, Khajiit, Bosmer there. It's really weird to see them amongst the Nord, but thinking about it, it's like, okay, yeah, they're there because, well, wherever they were coming from must have sucked. And you hit upon that point beautifully when I think about it. I guess the only thing that I can add to that, really, is that it's not a double-edged sword, but it's really blurry when you think about it. Because for those of us who search for authenticity in all forms, you want to see a majority, if not all, Nords in Skyrim. You want to see a majority of Dunmer and Morrowind. But at the same time, when you see those other races, you can't help but ideally raise a brow, like, what the fuck are you doing here? At the same time, it's like, oh, well, they were just fleeing Rivenspire because their hut was burned down and now they're trying to eke out a living here, or something of that nature. You know what I mean?
It's kind of tough too, because you got to kind of find a way. You got to decide where you're gonna go, I guess, with your setting, what you're gonna think. Like, are you gonna consider in your RP, like, if you walk around the Rift, or obviously Rift, and there's probably majority not Nord. Well, how do you conceptualize that? Do you count all the non-Nordic RPers and say that they've made up a majority now, or do you just say, well, there's also a million Nords here that you just can't see because they're NPCs? You see what I'm getting at? Like,
Yeah.
It's like, what do you, how do you feel that? And then I think there's a responsibility also on the other end of the people who are, this is their story and they're not Nords, but they are in Skyrim. And like I said, I would never dictate anybody's RP or what they, whatever sphere they're in decides to go with as far as that, but I think they have a responsibility to not perpetuate that idea that they've become the majority.
Right.
Because I think that's happened before in the past. Not that it was intentional, not saying that at all, but I do think that's happened. I think it hurt. It caused some tensions and maybe hurt a lot of RP on the Nordic side. I don't think you can, as a a person on that side of it, I don't think you can justify being like, well, there's a lot of us RPers here that aren't, so that means we're the majority and let's start acting like it. You have to kind of stick to the lore there and think, well, there's a lot of us here, player characters, doing this, but technically there's also, we're outnumbered, 20 to 1. So like, you can't, I think that comes into big play with attitude. Like, your character can have an attitude. I don't care if that's who you are, do what you do. But don't walk through Windhelm slapping babies and saying, I'll beat up every Nord here. You know what I mean? Like, you've got to, it's all about setting. I've done the same thing when I was anywhere else when the story went that way, where I was somewhere that I didn't technically belong, or whatever you want to say. I was still me, but I maybe wasn't as bold talking to people in the street. You know what I mean? Like, because you
Yeah,
can't,
sure.
I can't just, I can walk through Windhelm and, come here, boy. What are you doing? Hands off it. I can do what, but I don't go to the desert and say, come here, boy. What are I don't enforce my will or do anything like that. I'm still me, but I'm not stupid. So I don't RP out that I have any type of. I know my setting. That's just the main thing. You have to know your setting. And just because I think the RP community in general overall has a responsibility to not pervert the lore or that setting, just because we as player characters might lean to a certain thought pattern or racial choice or anything of that nature. If that makes sense.
No, yeah, everything you said rings home, and when I look back at myself and when I think about my responses to that, there have been a few times where I have fallen prey to like, God damn it, there are too many Khajiit here.
Right.
Why? What are they doing here? This is fucking rift. That means I need to see some more fucking Nords, but
Well, it's easy to do
I
because you visualize it, you see it, it's right there in front
sure,
of you.
sure.
And that's why I think like you're on that end, but the people on the other end who are playing those Khajiit kind of have a responsibility. Like I said, we're not trying to dictate anybody's role play, but just because there are 15 Khajiit RPers in the Withered Tree does not mean that you've taken over the city.
Exactly.
Like
Right.
you,
Right.
you gotta take it for what it's worth, and you could not take over city. And hopefully I don't offend anybody. I don't think anybody that we know or any was a part of this, but I was recently in the Rift and I was just bored, so I was kind of walking around and come upon some Imperial RP and I got involved in it just because it seemed like some more cool organic RP going on. I add my Nordic flavor to it, but their deal was in talking to them and RPing out a little bit. Their deal was that they had control over the city,
Right.
and without a flurry of whispers to people going, you guys are idiots. You can't RP this. I casually RP'd my way around it,
Mm-hmm.
but it didn't end. I won't say it ended badly. No one was whisper hate tales to each other, but they politely asked me to not RP with them. Like I said, there was no, and I think anybody that's RP with me before knows I'm not a rude person. Like I'm not gonna, I'm not going out of my way to be a jerk and and emote, but I just could not allow myself to follow along with their sphere of RP that the Imperials have control over a city in Skyrim.
All right. All
And to
right.
me, that's kind of an RP etiquette thing. I think you always, it doesn't matter who you are or what you're going to do. If you're going to RP out in the open in a city like that, and if you want cooperation from other people, if you want organic RP with other people, you have to be mindful of your setting.
Let's see. That's
And
the thing, though.
some
That's
people aren't, but most people are. But
right. But that comes down to what RP really is. It's just all accepted etiquette. There.
it is. And I've always said, and I was just telling, I think, Chris this the other day, my entire goal with anything when it has to do with RP is, hey, I want to get together with friends and people I don't know alike, doesn't matter. Let's work together to weave a shared epic story.
Right.
That's all it is for me. It's just this is shared storytelling. Yes, it's traditional writing too. When you go off on your own and you write things and you write stories and you do this and that. But as far as the actual RP, in the game on the screen, it's a shared storytelling experience. So, I want everybody to have their verse. I want everybody to have their chapter or their line or what it is. But let's all work together to abide by the rules of this world, and also, like you said, also the etiquette, and also be courteous of each other. And that comes with the whole. But that's the goal. I mean, that's the goal. We're all here to it's a game. We're all here to have fun and flex our creativity and whatever have you, and write cool stuff and be cool people.
That's true. That's true. And it's too bad that some people can't be cool as others. Looking at a certain.
I think it's hard for people. I think there's an outside aspect of that like I said,
Well, I was just
I'm not
gonna.
a psychiatrist, but maybe some people, they're not getting the reassurance or the affirmation they need outside of the game world. So this is their chance to be everything they want to be and more. I don't know. You know what I mean? And
Well,
sometimes that rubs
you're
people.
highlighting what's called escapism. And
Yes, yes.
yes, and
Which,
I've
yeah,
always thought that there are three components to role play. And this is a very cynical outlook, but there are three components to role play. There's narcissism, escapism, and imagination. That's how I've always looked at it. Not a lot of folks won't agree with me on that, but when I look at around and just the way people take it, yeah, sure. And you do get some downright escapists, that's for sure.
I actually like that. That's pretty good. Yeah, I could see that absolutely. And you know, and you may touch on a little bit, but you know, some of the aspects that those aren't necessarily wholly negative, as long as you know it's like the old everything in moderation. You know, if you go too far on either of those, then you've probably ruined that shared experience with the people around you. Might be great for you, but it's not going to be great. And like I said earlier, this is a shared storytelling experience. You know, unless you want to RP by yourself, which is fun. You know, to do headcanon things and take screenshots and do everything on your own time every now and then. But I don't think I'd want it to be my entire roleplay experience.
I understand that.
Other people's what makes it great. But we've always agreed upon. I think everybody, and you're only as legendary or strong or epic or powerful or smart or whatever than the community you roleplay in perceives you to be. I mean that's where your power comes from as far as in the group setting. I mean, you alone might think that you're the god of all battle, but if the grand community or the overall overreaching community you RP with think otherwise, then unfortunately it's hard to change minds. So you got to kind of strike the chord in between of decency.
I'll say that comes down to, I think, perception of the group versus perception of the whole versus perception of the self. So for instance, right, if we were to look at your character within, say, I don't know how the community at large looks at your character, but say within, say, Hammer of Atmora, we can say that your character is universally lauded, right? My character looks up to you as hands down.
Right.
Now that's all going to change if we were, say, I don't know, if Rock was to come down to Kavach and then start RPing there, and then regardless of how much reputation, you may have ICly garnered for yourself, or maybe how much, our people may know you at large, either way, that doesn't mean shit compared to, the other circles that are all nebulous within
Yep.
the community.
And I think a lot of times, unfortunately, I usually don't mind that. I usually have no problem. I know you've been in a lot of these different communities, so I know that you probably have no issue with this either. But I have no issue with that. I actually enjoy it at times.
It's fun.
It
in a
is
way.
because it's a chance to prove
yourself. Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
But I think a lot of people have a real issue with that, and I think there was the whole thing. I don't know if you remember. Oh, housing is going to kill organic. World RP. It's going to kill it. Everybody's going to be trapped in their own houses. I don't think that did it. I think, sadly, individually, people's inability to branch out and do and get a little bit uncomfortable, like we were just talking about, and go into these other circles and reprove themselves all over again. I think that's what's kind of killed the organic RP and the community, the large community involvement and the multi-guild, multi-faction kind of events, because everybody wants to be the hero. Mostly, and some people want to be the villain, but then even in the villain community, everybody wants to be the villainous villain that ever villained.
Sure, but at the same time, like, you can't help but feel for them in a way because they have spent all that time trying to.
Absolutely, because it's tough. I mean, I've said it before. I've RP'd this character for going on 4 years. and I've never done it. I don't think, at least, and I think people would agree with me. Maybe not, but I don't think I've ever done it in a way that was, ridiculous or OP or lore bending or anything like that. But I mean, it's been a long time, and he's done a lot of epic things, and gone to other people's events and not been the hero, but at least been there, because it was their event. He was background, he was a side character, but he went, because he thought it was important. I don't have to be the hero all the time, but if there's a battle, he's going to be there because he's a warrior. So you add all that in together, and you've got a pretty, at least in my opinion, a pretty impressive resume. So it's tough, if you walk into, you know, X community or, this community, whatever, and they're like, shut up, wimp, and they all RP that you suck. It's like, do you know who I am?
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, imagine if you were, I'm not saying you would, but imagine if you were to, list that impressive resume towards folks outside of your circle. You might get a couple raised brows here and there. Like, I know that's happened to me personally, where if I remember, I can't remember which character it was, but they were talking about how they were in this pocket realm of Oblivion, and it was an RP adventure that they had. But of course, at the same time, my character, who thinks that Oblivion he has his own views about Oblivion, he'll be like, "Yeah, you're full of shit," because it's. But how do you come to terms with that? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's.
And really, the only way to do it is to, you've got to have a lot of, I feel like, out of character trust that no one's trying to get one over on anybody. We're all just here, to have a good time. And then you have to play everything close to the chest. You have to play everything in character. You might have to dance around a little bit, but you just say, hey, you might call out that it's BS, and they might call out, well, I was there, and I have the scars to prove it, and then that's the end of it. But then you RP together for a couple months, and you do some epic things together. Well, now all of a sudden you're eye sealy friends, and now you do believe it, or you don't. Either way, but it's just it's time, and it's commitment, and it's mutual trust and cooperation. But
also a certain element of flexibility.
yeah, yeah, because
Definitely
you gotta, you can't just. And I think you can always put that into an in-character perspective too. That flexibility, you don't have to just say, "Well, I learned these people RP this way, and they think it's okay to go to Oblivion." You can put that into your character, and you're like, "Well, I had no idea that you could do that until I talked to these mages over here."
Right. Okay, so let's circle it all the way back to your character, because we went on a lot of tangents actually. But anyway, let's circle it back to your character. Your character has been through a lot. I hope that his adventure is not over yet. I hope that you don't plan on closing the book on him anytime soon.
Too much fun.
Cool. But this is just you probably haven't, maybe you haven't given this some thought, but it's just a question. How do you see it all ending for Rokthor?
Man,
What's in your head
I have given this so much thought. You have no idea. I've got it visualized. I've got it conceptualized. I think one day when I finally get up the nerve to do it, I'm gonna have to have somebody commissioned to draw it out. So in my mind, due to the sacrifices he made and the promises he made to serve the goddess, he's gonna live quite a bit longer. And I'm going to say unfortunately. And the unfortunate part is not, anybody like, what do you mean unfortunately? Well, for him, that's unfortunate because every year he's still on Nern, toiling away. He's not in Sovngarde, so, and he's not a young man. So it's an unfortunate thing for him that he's going to live quite a few years, longer, than the time period we're at now. Nothing like crazy mystical, like, he's not going to be 200 years old. But, even for Nord, he's going to be long lived. And for me, I see it that he's going to keep fighting. He's going to keep doing what the goddess wills, and maintaining his honor. And for him, it's it's not just a like, well, I got to go do this again. Every victory, every task is a privilege because it's just another chance for him to say, look, I'm worthy. Look what I'm doing. And so I think for him it'll end. I don't know where, but it'll end on a battlefield. Um, some unnamed battlefield that I'm yet to come up with. Maybe I'll search through the lore after this when I finally do pin it. But it'll end for him, where he expects it to end, on a battlefield. But he won't fall, because he can't, he can't allow himself to just, after all this, do it like that. And in my mind, now this is going to get cheesy, so you got to bear with me here. Keep in mind, this is 100% headcanon. You know, nobody whisper me in game and tell me I'm an idiot.
You're an idiot.
I think too much of myself and all that. This is just all fantasy.
Well, that's the thing about headcanon.
Yeah. So disclaimer there. This is headcanon. No one write me like you suck. Can't do that. But so to me, on that whatever distant battlefield, wherever he's at, haggard and even older than he is now, but still, just a literal giant of a man, that's where he's going to meet his end. But he's
got crow's feet, liver spots.
But he's going to be the last one standing in his armor with his sword, and he's going to be surrounded by just bodies upon bodies upon bodies of ally and foe all around him. But he's going to be mortally wounded, and he's going to put his sword into the ground, and he's going to lean against it, and he's going to look up to the heavens, and take a last breath. And that's how he's going to die. And that's how they're going to find him. They're going to come out on the battlefield, and this hulking ancient Nord is going to be dead, but still his weight, leaned upon his sword, so he's still standing. He's going to die on his feet.
I like that.
Yeah, that's how he's going to end. And now, of course, the goofy part, my headcanon part of it, and the picture I'll have commissioned one day, as he's there leaned against his sword, finally dead. The skies will open up. You'll see like the bridge. You'll see the whalebone bridge. In the scene, and you'll see soon. He'll be like beckoning him. Like, come on, come get some. And then in my head canon, like the ghost of like or the spirit, if you will, of like Ysgramor will, in that classic armor that we remember seeing him in, he'll be right beside him, like with his hand on his shoulder, like, like,
you got this.
Like, well done, it's time to go. So that's Rokthor's in
okay.
headcanon. But yeah, and it'll be a while, and he.
Give me an age.
I don't know.
Just
probably
give me a ballpark age. I'm curious.
See, I don't know, because I hate to say a number, and there's like, well, the Nords can't even live that long, but
fuck them.
But it'll be up there. I mean, I'd say he'll be well into his 80s.
Okay,
if not more. And some of that'll be, like I said, it's illogical, I know, but like I said, these are our characters, and nothing really makes 100% sense. So it's in my head canon. He'll be up into his 80s, maybe 100, whatever. And a lot of that'll just be that and even in his mind, and that's what he believes now, that he doesn't think he can die. He doesn't think he's all powerful or immortal or anything like that. He just believes that he can't die until Kyne says it's time for him to die. And that's why he's here. That's why he's still here. That's why he's, even up in his age, he still has maybe even more strength than he ever did, because, he made his deals, he talked to her, he's, what do I got to do to get there? And this is what you got to do. So now do it. And so now he's doing it. And he's pretty set that, when she's ready for him to die, she'll let him know where to go and, what battle to fall in. But until then, he's just going to,
Here's how I look at that, because to me, it's not, I mean, yes, Rock has, as you say, he's been trying to be the best that he can be, right? But he's not trying to be the best of them all, right? And I think that always trying to be the best possible version of himself, that's possibly, in my opinion anyway, from rather than from a divine intervention, more of a grounded aspect. That's what sees him through to his old age. Is the fact that he's always
absolutely,
He's not satisfied with the ceiling that he reaches. If he finds a ceiling, he's going to try and break it. At least that's my interpretation of it.
Yep, and that actually is perfect because I mean that's been his whole deal, for however long, and now it's just been exemplified. It's been amped up, if you will, with the thought of the goddess's blessing, and I can't die until. So yeah, it just played on his own personal feelings and thoughts, and yeah, that's right on, man. Because that's his deal, and I think that helps too with the interaction with other players because it doesn't just seem like I think it'd be real easy in that scenario to be like, well, this guy just thinks he's reincarnation of Isgrimor over here, like this guy, but since it's not to be the best that ever was, it's to be the best version of himself. He's able to interact with others in a way that's not so grating that they just don't want to be around him because he's not worried about what they're, he has no qualms about saying, this guy's the best archer I've ever seen. Like this guy swings a hammer like nobody I've ever seen. Like he has no issue with that. He has, there's no issue with somebody being the best at something that,
maybe so long as they deserve it, of course.
Exactly. Just like in that recent event when he gave Grog, when he gave his which was so cool. I was so glad I was able to do that. I had to pour it out of there and grab that. I had that looted item that it was like a piece of the shaft of Volendrum.
Right.
Oh man, that was so. I don't know if you even knew that. So at his oathing, I gave that. Yeah, at his oathing, I gave that to him. And I've been waiting to use that for so long, But he even said then he was like, never, have I seen such a display of reckless fury, in the face of. And he has no problem giving that type of praise to everybody who he calls brother and sister, because it's not, there's no jealousy there. There's no anything. It's, he's not, he's for all those people. He's not, there's no, competition
for his friends anyway.
Right. For his friends. Yeah. But, whatever, to best the competition, whatever is, between enemies, between shields and he wants them to have that spirit that he had where, learn everything. Somebody walks up and they've got this, sweet Redguard style of curved sword fighting. Well, by God, don't laugh at it. You learn that shit, like learn it and be good at it. And even if you don't want to use it, you don't like it, at least when it comes at you to kill you, you'll know what to expect.
Right. Okay. Well, I wish we could continue this journey a bit further because there are more questions that I have, but I see the time now. It's about 7. We started at 2. This makes about 5 hours that we were at this. So I'm afraid we have to draw this to a close.
Nords get to chat, and you know how it goes.
Yeah, man. Before we do, though, I always leave it in the hands of the guest. If there's anything that you'd like to talk about, any other subject that you'd like to pursue, then by all means we can talk about it. I'll splice it in some part of the episode and give it to you to listen later. But yeah, if there's anything that you'd like to talk about further, be it your own character, the hammers, or anything of that nature, it's in your ballpark.
How about this? Here's an interesting thing that's come up in recent days with a few of us. Get your take on it. What do you see as the general, and don't worry about hitting on like little things like updates, like we got the Wolf Hunter update, but what do you see in the grand scheme of Elder Scrolls Online as far as the storyline, like where it's heading and maybe where the eventual end is? And how does that play into, if at all, future lore and future, I guess, consequences and things for future Elder Scrolls games? That's a good one, right?
Yeah, it is a good one. All right, because I don't like it having flipped on me and saying, "So, what's your opinion?" I'm like, "You bastard! That's what this episode's for. I hear your opinion on this shit."
I'll tell you. I'll start with mine. How about that?
Okay.
Because I don't know. I honestly don't know. We just that's a cop out. I know, but we were having this discussion the other day, and I have no idea where they go from here. Because I feel like they kind of were working backwards with lore and things when they created this game and started to make updates, because you're in the past, and there are unfortunately a few things that they've introduced, and it's not. I'm not bashing it all, but there are a few things that they've introduced that you won't find any reference of to their other games, even though their other games take place in the future. Like I said, because they're working backwards. So I don't know where they're going to go. Here's an interesting idea, and you can love it, hate it, or maybe you expand on whatever your ideas are. Um, I used to be on the side because I do enjoy PvP. I like going to Cyrodiil. Um, I used to be on the side of people would always say, why can't we just PvE and you know in Cyrodiil? Why can't we? Why can't you make another server for just PvE? Why do we got to deal with this and then? I used to be like, oh, shut up, just because you're scared to fight. I've changed my opinion on it a little bit, and the reason why is that is such a. I don't know if you ever really explored that zone when you're not fighting in some of the various little cool little houses and just towns and random things there. It's the biggest zone we have in the game. Um, it's a very interesting place. I mean, and I would not mind if for whatever reason, I don't know, call it a dragon break, call it whatever you want, that this war somehow, ended in some sort of weird way. Something happened. Um, they moved the war to somewhere else, or there was some other type of deal, like, well, we need mercenaries to capture this in the desert. I don't know, whatever it is, have another PvP zone. But I think it'd be pretty cool if there was a rebuilding Cyrodiil type thing, or at least a go there and view the war torn lands after no one's there fighting. But as far as future, content, where I have no idea where this going. I feel like they're playing this Daedric angle pretty hard and all that, but now I don't know. I don't know where they're going. I'm guessing they're eventually going to go back to Skyrim, just because it's such a popular thing and there's so much left to explore there as far as the map and the zones. But then what do you do with that? What's the story there? I have no idea. But those are my thoughts.
Okay. I'll talk about where I think it's going to go, and then I'm going to talk about where I want it to go, and then I'm going to talk about it in relation to the lore also. But because I'm a disorganized fuck, I'm going to start with that last point first in the game and its relation to the lore. There's this dude on YouTube named Zarek Zakarin who I've been thinking about trying to see if he'd be open to coming on the podcast. I highly doubt it, but anyway. He's a bit of a lore buff. He's got this comprehensive series. It delves more. It's, I'd say, with all due respect to Shoddycast, I'd say it's above Shoddycast's lore videos. Granted that it's him talking to the screen and Elder Scrolls games playing background on the green screen. He's talking to you, he's telling you, how the world's come up and his interpretation of it. And one of his latest videos that's come out is that he's talking about how Elder Scrolls Online is apparently canon. He wishes it wasn't. So, with all that being said, the time period of Elder Scrolls Online takes place in, I believe, what's called the Interregnum, where we're getting war upon war upon war upon war. So, with all that being said, the way I see it in Elder Scrolls Online in relation to the lore and the later games is that unless Bethesda is accommodating to ZeniMax Online, we might get some books added in retroactively, which would be kind of cool. I wouldn't mind that. But ultimately, if I were to think about it realistically and the way game design works and, how much they have to deal with budgetary issues and shit, not to mention the monstrous amount of lore that they'd have to input just to outline perhaps the effects that the Interregnum has, particularly the Three Banners War, I don't think they'd be able to cover all of that, at least not all of it. So the way I've always interpreted Elder Scrolls Online is that it happened within the tapestry of history. It happens, sure. But because it's a dark age, much of it gets lost to time. And it's interesting when you think about war, as a concept, because war is where we see the forefront and evolution of technology. But at the same time, it can also get very, very, very destructive. So, for example, what I mean by this is that the computer, oddly enough, and the atomic bomb are both products of World War II. The computer was, in concept anyway, it was far back as the 1700s. Back then, it was in the 1700s, there was this machine made by some Italian who was trying to get some basic addition subtraction done through a series of levers that would fork out a sum or so. But once World War II rolls around and we get the advent of code breaking, then they need to start figuring out all these different algorithms. So naturally, technology speeds up. Obviously, we have the atomic bomb also be developed, which, looking at it comparatively to what was done in Hiroshima and what the Russians have called the Tsar Bomba, which, if anyone looks that up, it's very, very scary. They've also, tangent here again, the Russians have developed a new type of nuclear missile called the Satan II, which apparently has enough of a payload to level out the entirety of France, which is also another scary thought. And another thing that keeps me up at night amongst the 250,000 things that keep me up at night. Oh my God. But anyway, what I'm getting at here is that, so within ESO, we're going to see war that brings out a lot of different aspects of the races that on Nern, which is great from a conceptual standpoint, because it's going to force some of the writers over there at ZeniMax to come up with shit, for better or for worse, to adapt and create more lore as they release their content. The most apparent example right now is Order of the Silver Dawn and what's coming out with Wolf Hunter, which I will admit, despite my extreme prejudice to the supernatural aspects, I am interested in seeing what they have cooked up. But at the same time, and if history teaches us anything, is that if we have too much of war, then we're going to lose a lot of things. The most prominent example is the Dark Ages after the collapse of the Roman Empire. Much of what we know within the Dark Ages, and the reason they call it the Dark Ages, is not because we get a regression of society. It's because much of what we try to figure out is lost. We've tried to recover it as best as we can, but we can't. All that history is lost. There's so many things that historians have to do to guess and approximate, and all these things that happen, it's because as a result of those Dark Ages. So this interregnum is a Dark Age, and a lot of what's going to happen is not going to be recorded in history, or at least it's going to try to be, but because of some war, because of some Colovian duke who decides like, oh yeah, fuck this Daedric edict, I'm going to start my own empire with blackjack and hookers, or fuck these races of man, they don't know what they're doing. We got to put an Altmer on the throne because that's the only way to steer the course of history in the right way. Or, fuck all of you. We just want to be independent. Leave us the fuck alone. It's interesting. My thesis here is that Elder Scrolls Online is canon. Is it recorded canon within the confines of the succeeding games? No. Why? Because the interregnum is where the most blood happens. Never mind the Tiber Wars. The Tiber Wars are prominent because Tiber Septim was able to illustrate the narrative how he wanted. But this interregnum is much more on a grander scale, right. Probably a lot more bloodier. So we are not going to be able to look back in the other games and be like, oh yeah, remember the Three Banners War? Remember?
Yeah, and you always got to remember that the history is written by the victor, the survivor, the victors. So
there is no victors to be had within this age.
So maybe no one has gotten to write anything. Right. Like it's just total annihilation.
Exactly. So this, I think, sets the entirety of Tamriel with the exception of maybe, I want to say Argonia and Murkmire, because Argonia has always been notoriously, well, scratch Murkmire. Murkmire is the upcoming DLC. I take that back. But, I mean, the deep parts of Black Marsh.
Hist, man.
Yeah, the Hiss. They're probably gonna be staying out of that shit. They're probably gonna be okay. But everything else, the entirety of Tamriel, that's probably gonna be set back a few thousand years. Which makes it the prime breeding ground for Tiber Septim to be like, hey guys, I got this cool thing called the Voice. Want to see it? Or hey guys, I got this cool thing called the Nomidium. Want to see it? You know.
Either way, do what I tell you to
do. Exactly. Now, in terms of where I'd like for ESO to go, I used to be a prominent supporter of the Three Banners War. I thought it was infinitely interesting. I thought that it's really cool how you have, well, not really cool, but I thought it was infinitely interesting how you have basically races who basically want nothing to do with each other, all together working towards a common goal. And, you know, you see some of that interplay in factional politics at play there, which is pretty cool. And what I mean by that is, if you think about it, well, how would the Nords react if they were like, oh yeah, if the Dummer were like, oh yeah, we have the Heart of Lorcan, it's in the Red Mountain. Be like, are you serious? Because, you know, we gotta go in there. We gotta take it for research purposes. Yeah, that's the reason why. But, you know, they really don't have any business being together, but lo and behold, there they are. So why not? That's infinitely interesting. However, after my talk with Saren and after some talking with everybody's favorite Archmage Ascotter, and after bothering Edelric for some lore bits and such, I thought about it and I'm like, you know what? It wouldn't be such a crazy idea if they ended it. If they ended the Three Banners War, because they already have the groundwork for another means of PvP through Battlegrounds. Now, granted, it's not, you know, the Alliance War, because mechanics-wise, the Alliance War, right, in my opinion, is fun as fuck. It's great. I enjoy that.
I imagine they just move it somewhere else. And like, you're a mercenary of this faction, and you're a mercenary of this faction, and we all want this prime spot of land for things. I don't know. Nern Crux.
Nerd Crux.
We need it.
Yes, exactly. And that's, they can easily draw a historical example, say Nern Crux's oil, and it's like, oh yeah, those damn Khajiit.
AKA, no. Now we're in the Alakir. What's going
on? I love that. That's the best joke ever. Okay, sorry. But yeah, but yeah, you know, they can easily pull on Nern Crux, and heck, they end the Alliance War in the favor of some other war going on. You know, they don't have to. I'd like for that to happen. I think that'd be kind of cool, just to eventually have an expansion for folks that subscribe to the expansion. You know, have the Alliance War end, and sure, open up Cyrodiil, and like you said, they get to rebuilding. Imagine what a earth-shattering expansion that would be. Like, they flip everything on its head. I'd love that. I'd eat that up. That'd be great.
Just the fact that zone is so large, the potential for just, you know, spontaneous and just random RP and corners that no one's ever been. You know what I mean? It's just it's a huge map.
Oh, for sure. Not only that, but like for those folks who have been accustomed to the constant state of war of Cyrodiil, whether we like it or not, it's something that touches upon every character to some certain extent, whether it's, whether we like it or not. It's there, it's present. We talk about it day to day, no matter what. And for that to all happen, then what opportunities does that present us? What do we do then? I'd love to answer those questions. It'd be great. Imagine, oh man, would that throw the Imperial role players for a loop? They, completely shit themselves.
A place to call home.
But I mean, more like shit. We were, they were so. I mean, at this point, the Alliance War is something that's so ingrained in, now.
I still dig at them on that a little bit in RP if they get too lippy about where they're at.
Yeah.
Kind of giving
If you
me
don't like it, you could just go home.
why don't you go home and start practicing to lick whatever boot or whatever foreigner sits on the throne when you get back? They don't like that.
I love it. I that's great. But they end the war, and I don't mind them playing up the Daedric ankle.
Not at all.
Angle. Excuse me. Yeah, it's the most recent expansion, based from what I heard of it, and I should probably play it. It's been really interesting. I don't mind that. I liked it. I liked the
pretty
writing
cool.
for it.
It's pretty cool, and even as a Nord, it's a cool zone. I liked it. It was well done. The quests I thought were well done. I had a good time. I liked it.
And I don't mind, if they start having the Daedric princes going up as, secret cabals that, trying to cause some hell on Earth.
Now there's an idea for some alliance action there. Like,
sure,
Daedric Prince, now they're in an all-out war. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, that'd be kind of cool, right? Like, you enter the Deadlands, and now you guys are now there's like a Cyrodiil action going on there. It's really crazy, but hey, it's crazy enough to try it out. I wouldn't mind it. Why not?
I picked neutral faction. Kyne's Fury is here to teach you all lessons. Daedric scum.
Yeah, I'd be interested in seeing it. I'd also like to see that. In terms of where I think it'll actually go, I think that they'll try and milk the Daedric War Daedric War angle. There we go. They might try and milk that just a little bit more. Why? Because it provides some good content. But eventually,
and it's kind of simple. It's easy. You don't step on too many lower toes and things of that nature when you just go this route, because that's what they do. The Daedric are always interfering in our affairs.
Right. But eventually, and I'm looking to World of Warcraft as an example, is that they'll have to return to the faction war question sooner or later, right? We might see this with Battle for Azeroth. How that'll pan out.
You got to get back to your roots. You got to close some loopholes and some things you left open.
Sure, and in fact, I've also seen this with your favorite MMO and mine, Guild Wars 2. Like, they've touched back upon the business of the 6 human gods, particularly Balthazar, with I think the 3rd season of Living Story, and that met some acclaim to the harshest of critics. So that's also cool. So in the broadest of strokes, so what I'm predicting is that they're going to play with the Daedric War angle just a little bit more. Then they're going to go ahead and possibly play with some other race that has not been touched. Maybe we're kind of seeing the groundwork with it, with Argonians. Then eventually maybe they'll return to their roots and end the Alliance War. Now, one thing I do want to see, and this is because it pisses me off to no end that we have not seen neither heads nor tails of this, is the split between Eastern Skyrim and Western Skyrim. I do want to know what's happening in Western Skyrim. Don't give me just the Falkreath DLC. That's like...
I almost think that's going to be another big chapter, like full-on expansion. And there'll be some implications, implications of that, and maybe a coming to terms there.
Yeah, and I mean, but they're not going to do that for a while, and here's why. At least if they're smart, they're not going to do that for a while, and here's why. Skyrim still sits large within the player imagination today, right?
Yep.
If they learn their lesson from Morrowind, and if they take some of the lessons that they've learned with Somerset Isles, they're in a prime place to deliver on Skyrim, right? Because Morrowind, they played up the nostalgia factor. They used the original height map. Perhaps that was to their detriment to do so, but either way, it wasn't it wasn't all that they hyped it up to be.
Yep.
I think Somerset was all that and more. They went above and they did pretty good with Somerset. I almost said they went above and beyond, but that's giving them too much. So they're not going to go for Skyrim for a long while.
I agree with
But
that. It'd be like showing your whole hand, right away. I mean, I think that's their ace, in the hole, and they know that at any time with numbers are dwindling, we got to do something. Okay, guys, it's time. Yeah,
Skyrim.
Yep.
Who knows? Maybe I think that the longevity of this game, I think it can keep going till 2024. And the reason I say that is, if I look at the MMO market now, with the exception of, and I might ruffle a few feathers here, I think with the exception of some of the more dynamic MMOs, like Chronicles of Illyria or Star Citizen or that one other space MMO that I can't fucking remember. With the exception of those MMOs, the MMO market as a whole is largely stagnant. It hasn't really changed since that big MMO boom that came out in like 2010, 2011.
That's true.
So this game can keep going. They have an okay engine, the Hero engine. It's not the best engine, but the Hero engine, they're using it better than the folks over there at BioWare Austin. They use a fucked up version.
Yeah.
I like Lawrence Schick. I think that denigrating him to lead lore master, that makes no fucking sense. Just give him back the head writer position. Yeah. I shouldn't insult them, but just give him back the damn position, and let him, go ahead and give direction to the game again, and they might do some progressiveness of the game. Also, they do something with this game that I don't think a lot of other MMOs do, which is the dynamic phase instance. So say like if you complete a quest area, that town is now completed. You don't have to go back there and fight any more mobs, which is kind of refreshing, I think. Still a new novel concept.
It's good for the immersions too.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, it does get problematic for the folks that, haven't done it, but even
to that we say get on with it. No.
I mean, I'd say I'm of that mindset. Like, come on, what are you waiting for? I understand that you play this game to RP, but at the same time, if you want to RP, you want to make sure that you have all your affairs in order. But either way, anyway, where was I going with this? All right. This game has a good piece of longevity to it. It's not like they suffered any major financial losses anyway. There's nothing been that's so controversial that's causing them to lose subscribers. I think that since Somerset, there was probably a big influx of subscribers. But then again, now it's started to level out again, as it usually does in the MMO lifespan. It always levels out after some release of new content. But as long as the MMO doesn't change hands, and here I'm looking to the examples of crap. What was it? EverQuest? Not EverQuest. I think I don't know. It's some MMO that Daybreak Games got, and since then it's been going down the shitter. But either way, as long as the MMO doesn't change developer hands, it'll be okay. We might see but we might see a blow to the player base once Fallout 76 comes out, but that's not particularly classified as a major MMO, so we'll see how that goes. I don't know. I'm positive. I think the games are going to be okay. All right, so let's draw this journey to a close, ladies and gentlemen. Rock, thank you so much for coming on today's episode.
Thanks for having me. I
regret that we couldn't have the conversation just a little bit longer. We got to get a move on, I'm sure. Plus, I'm dying to PvP. So
for another time.
Yeah. So we'll close this episode out with a 10-item questionnaire that becomes that's a ritual that I always use to close out the question. Close out the episode, excuse me. Where we get a snapshot into how that weird Kentucky mind of yours thinks. and then we'll set you free. You'll be free to go.
Sure.
All right, 10 questions. You ready?
I am ready.
All right. Number 1. What is your favorite word?
Favorite word is all right. Never heard that before. Have you? Just all right. All right. All right. I say it a million times a day. All right. Everything's going to be all right. It's all right. All right.
Number 2. What is your least favorite word?
Hate.
Why is that your least favorite?
I just don't. I don't prescribe to it at all. That's just my thing. It does not exist in. I might say it. I hate when they do that. But as far as I try to avoid it. And as far as like really, saying it with venom and meaning it, I just do not do it.
Number 3. What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
I'd say everything around me, my entire life, my children, my wife, just my life in general. Very blessed.
Number 4. What turns you off?
Negativity, negative people, people who, back to the hate, the hurt, the people who kind of live their life to make others miserable.
What is your favorite curse word?
I try to avoid them so my wife doesn't hate me, but I would say it's probably going to have to be the old king of curse words, the F word.
Number 6. A very pertinent question to the noise I'm hearing. What sound or noise do you love?
My daughter's laughter.
Number 7. What sound or noise do you hate?
My daughter crying.
Number 8. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Oh, that's a good one. I will say police officer.
Number 9. What profession would you not like to do ever in a million years? They could not pay you enough to do it.
Any type of politician.
And finally, number 10. What would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gate?
Well done, good and faithful servant.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for this episode. Rock, thank you so much for joining me. And as always, I'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.